Dell's HYCU, GitHub holes, Palo Alto on IBM's radar, SIEM vendor Voltron, AI PC paradigms, and a closer look at Dell Tech World. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the May 22nd episode of the Gestalt IT Rundown. My name is Tom Hollingsworth, and I did not go out and buy a musical instrument today, even though it is National Buy a Musical Instrument Day, because I have my favorite partner in crime who makes the beautiful music at this event, Mr. Stephen Foskett. Stephen, welcome to the Rundown this week.
Well, if I can connect to another news story, I did go out and buy the new iPad, which apparently has many musical instruments crushed into it mercilessly.
Maybe almost like a pudding, if you will, maybe vanilla flavored, because that's also today. But what we have, of course, is a great dessert full of wonderful news stories that will be sweet to the palate and hopefully filling. And we have some interesting news coming up out of our friends from Dell and HYCU, because we've been enthusiastic about HYCU's data protection capabilities for quite a while. But they're adding a twist from our aforementioned friends at Dell, because they have announced that HYCU can now write directly to PowerProtect DataDomain, which gives joint customers high-performance pipelines for their data with DD Boost. HYCU is also integrated into Dell Azure Stack HCI and Azure Stack Hub. Is this a major move for HYCU?
You know, it might be a major move for Dell. Interestingly, so HYCU's data protection is set apart from many of their competitors through integration with applications. The R cloud that they've got basically can protect all sorts of different SaaS applications. They've got a open API and dev kit to add new applications. They've been adding more and more over time. This is pretty exciting as enterprises adopt SaaS applications. But of course, there are also a need to protect conventional applications and to integrate with conventional data protection solutions. Those of you who are living under a rock may not be aware of the DataDomain name, but frankly, they pioneered enterprise data protection as we know it today. And Dell's PowerProtect line is basically a whole toolbox full of different ability to protect enterprise data. By adding HYCU to this mix, it really gives Dell a major boost. They can now have enterprise customers as well as MSPs, because of course HYCU is multi-tenant aware, protect SaaS data and integrate directly with DataDomain. This means that HYCU can hand off data using DataDomain's proprietary API format. They can leverage DataDomain's inline deduplication and compression capabilities and have all of this enterprise data land the same place that enterprises are already landing a lot of their on-prem data. So overall, man, HYCU just keeps making great moves in the data protection space, really punching above their weight. And the fact that Dell is willing to go on record and provide quotes, I think suggests that Dell is pretty impressed with this capability and values the HYCU name, brand, and capabilities. So way to go, both of you. I think this is a big benefit for customers, and just happy to hear more. A GitHub exploit? 10 out of 10. No notes. Well, except for the part about it being an exploit and the patch. GitHub released a patch to prevent their SAML single sign-on system from being exploited. The exploit allows full admin access to anyone that was able to forge a response token. Ironically, this exploit is only enabled for servers running more securely encrypted assertions options. The bug was found through the GitHub bug bounty program, which could net the finder up to 30,000 buckaroos in compensation for this massive security flaw. Tom, is this as bad as it looks?
10 out of 10? Come on. Chef's kiss. Here's the deal. You're going to run into this problem if you're running older versions of their enterprise server platform, which, okay, let's be fair, most people are probably running a slightly older version. You have to be on 9.13, I think was the latest code train where this bug isn't apparent. Great, we'll patch out the stuff in the other ones. The biggest problem is that a lot of people believe that what you're supposed to do is just turn on the most secure part of it and then you don't have anything to worry about, right? You still have to check the most secure parts of the system in order to make sure you don't have any kind of weird exploitation thing going on. And that's why I think it's ironic that this doesn't work on anything less secure. So ultimately what people are going to have to do is they're going to have to go out and they're going to have to still rigorously test what they're working on. Being able to forge a SAML SSO response token and gain full privilege over the server, that's a huge issue. That's not something that should be exploitable even if the code is up to date. Like, to me, it's that old zero trust compartmentalization thing of, even if I'm able to kick the front door in, if I'm stuck in a room with no doors and no windows, I can't really do a whole lot of damage, right? This is making sure that all of the infrastructure on the back end is protected against these kinds of things. Because I guarantee you, if this had not been a keys to the kingdom kind of exploit, if it had just been like, oh, we can forge a SAML SSO response, but after that you can't do anything, I don't think this would have been a 10 out of 10. Also, props to whoever got this and found it and was able to get it to GitHub. I know that GitHub's stated bug bounty program is between like $20,000 and $30,000 compensation. This is not a $30,000 bug. This is like a $300,000 bug. This is every bad thing you can think of from having your code publicly available on GitHub and being able to exploit it. I mean, let's just say that someone was able to log in, gain access to the server in a private repo and start injecting malware code into the system. We already saw this with Linux. With some of the modules that go into it a few months ago or a few weeks ago on a news story in the rundown. And that was something where that was a known quantity that we had an audit trail for. This could have been no audit trail. So pay the man or the woman or whoever found this bug, because they do deserve it. Palo Alto Networks landed on IBM's radar this week, or, well, more appropriately, they just bought IBM's QRadar. The solution includes their EDR offering, X-Force Threat Intelligence, security orchestration, and Randori Recon. The move comes as IBM seeks to divest their non-core assets after they announced that they were going to be acquiring HashiCorp, which we covered previously on the rundown. Palo Alto will be migrating the QRadar customers over to their Cortex platforms and then integrating the QRadar software assets into their platforms as well. Also announced was a deal that would see IBM reselling Palo Alto security offerings through their consulting business. Rather than having us comment on this ourselves, let's get a reaction from our colleague Krista McComber, who recently wrote a research note about this announcement.
Yep, thanks, guys. So as you mentioned, last week, hot on the heels of the RSA conference, we did see that Palo Alto Networks announced that it plans to acquire the IBM QRadar business. And this is notable not only for both IBM and QRadar, but really for the security market as a whole. We're seeing that the more traditional SIEM tools, which IBM QRadar is one, they're experiencing some increasing competition from alternative options like Palo Alto Networks, their Cortex platform, which is what we would consider an extended detection and response platform. And the reason is because security operations teams are looking for tools that can really kind of streamline their job functions on a day-to-day basis, provide more visibility across their environment to kind of enhance their threat detection, and really kind of also incorporate some automation and artificial intelligence to, as I was mentioning, streamline their functions, but also further kind of hone that ability to detect and respond to vulnerabilities, incidents, things of that nature. So the deal is expected to close in September. It's primarily for Palo Alto Networks, an acquisition of the customer base. They do plan to migrate the the QRadar customer base over to the Palo Alto Networks Cortex platform following the close of the deal this fall. So in addition to really kind of a consolidation of vendors in the security operations space, one thing that kind of jumped out to me in the announcement is the fact that Palo Alto Networks will acquire IBM's X-Force threat intelligence team. And that's notable to me because X-Force is well respected in the industry. They have kind of a long history of, threat detection. Their X-Force intelligence report, which they produce on an annual basis, has sort of become what I would view as really a de facto in terms of analyzing how threat actors, their approaches are evolving on a yearly basis. So it'll be interesting from my perspective to see how that's integrated with the existing threat intelligence efforts that Palo Alto Networks has underway, and really what they do with that team in addition to the customer base. We do have a research note, so I collaborated with Stephen Dickens on our end that goes a little bit more into detail, not only from the Palo Alto Network side of things, but also from the IBM side of things that we can link to in the show notes here. And again, it's going to be really interesting to see how this market continues to evolve moving forward.
Well, it's awesome having Krista weigh in on that. Thanks a lot. Two of the biggest SIEM vendors are merging. Exabeam and LogRhythm have announced that they're joining forces to take on the bigger players in the security incident and event management space. After the huge news that Cisco was buying Splunk, the rest of the market faced pressure to consolidate. This merger will see two vendors that were head-to-head competitors previously now under a single banner. Analysts are bullish on the combined company, but see troubles ahead as they try to integrate their various product lines. Tom, I know you're familiar with these products. What do you think?
I think this is a good move overall because these two companies had kind of been, I've seen competitive intelligence said that they were going against each other. They have their unique niche and they have a very critical role to play. And I think that they really could be better together, whole being greater than the sum of its parts. LogRhythm has been very popular in the on-prem space. They're really big in EMEA, and a lot of their customers are, the sticky kind that, have a big investment in there. And they have a really good development of SIEM technologies. Where they're missing out is they were late to the game in their cloud offering, and their user behavior analytics piece isn't as developed as it could be. Now, on the other side of that coin, you've got Exabeam, who has amazing user analytics and their behavior analysis. And then they are doing better in the cloud space, but they are not as full featured in the SIEM department. And that's one of those things where when you are looking for a vendor like this, you want the kitchen sink, the garbage disposal, the dishwasher, and the stand mixer on the counter. You want everything all together. And for smaller companies, it's really hard to compete in that space. Well, then enter 800-pound gorilla IBM, or enter 800-pound gorilla Cisco, buying 805-pound gorilla Splunk in this market. So what do you get out of that? Well, you get a lot of companies like IBM choosing to develop or divest their SIEM to Palo Alto Networks, like we just covered in the previous story. You get these two companies that are trying to integrate with each other to kind of be able to take a step up and move to the next level and take on this behemoth. And I think that it's overall better for people in the long run. And I know that there are folks out there who are probably already angrily typing a comment about how consolidation is not good in the market. Yes, it is, if the pieces that you're bringing together, like Voltron, each have their own unique abilities that then combine to be something better. This isn't two companies that are like, generic company A and generic company B that both do 95% of the same thing, kind of coming together to be lazy. And basically we're looking for efficiencies and synergy and all other kinds of stuff. This is two companies who have complementary product lines, really making a difference to build a better solution overall. But as noted in the read-in, that's going to take a little bit of time. This is not something like in 90 days that everybody can just say, okay, we're done and everything's going to work out perfectly fine. And you're not just going to see that from here. The Cisco Splunk integration is going to take quite a while too. So I think that this is good. Exabeam and LogRhythm have good customers. They have a lot of traction in the market. And this new combined unit, I think overall, will lead to some better offerings for their customers, but also some competitiveness in the rest of the space. During Microsoft Build this week, just about every PC maker announced new CoPilot Plus PCs. CoPilot Plus is a combination of hardware and software that enables AI processing locally on device using neural processing units, or NPUs. This includes recall. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But as well, there's AI-assisted art generation and editing and a bunch of other stuff that they're including. Now, those features only work if you have one of these new PCs with the NPU, and the NPU today only comes from Qualcomm, and it uses an ARM core alongside more traditional x86 architectures. Although AMD and Intel participated in this announcement, did we just witness a sea change in the CPU market?
Well, I think we kind of did. It is very interesting to see that the signature new features of these AI PCs are only available with ARM processors from Qualcomm. I don't think that's going to last. I'm just going to come right out and say it. Intel and AMD are not asleep at the wheel, and they absolutely. I know this is. I don't have any insider information on this, but I think it's safe to say they've got their own NPU-equipped processors ready to be launched at any day. And in fact, they may have already launched some of them, or quietly launched some of them, without talking too much about what the NPUs can do. But that being said, the feature here is all about, number one, on-device processing. Number two, tensor performance per watt. And number three, thin, light, and portable. And if you need those features, which basically everybody wants in a PC these days, there's only one company that's offering chips that's not named Apple, and that's Qualcomm. So if we look at the Snapdragon X processors that Qualcomm released in the fall, and we look at what they can do and the numbers that we're seeing out of those, well, it's pretty darn impressive. Now, I have to give a shout out to my colleague, Brian Shrout, here at the Futurum Group. The Signal 65 Labs has done quite a lot of testing of these processors and quite a lot of work to determine exactly what these numbers look like. And they look very, very impressive. There are articles all over the internet this morning digging into the numbers that came out of the Signal 65 Labs. And frankly, Qualcomm looks like they've got a major hit on their hands here. And when we say every PC builder, we mean every PC builder. The CoPilot Plus PCs that were debuted here include companies that you may have heard of: Acer, Asus, Dell, HP, Lenovo, Microsoft, Samsung. And we expect that these PCs are going to be available from essentially every OEM. And just like when you compare an Apple Silicon equipped MacBook to an Intel equipped MacBook, it is sort of a night and day in terms of battery life, heat, performance, etc. We're seeing reports that it's just like that when it comes to these PCs. For example, a Dell XPS 13 with the Snapdragon X Elite in it is just 2-3 times faster and more efficient than the similar machine with an Intel processor in it. At least those are the initial reports. And frankly, that's going to give companies like Dell a major, major thing to crow about in the market. They have been losing ground to Apple in the performance per watt, the thin and light, the cool instead of roasting your laptop market. They're going to be able to deliver machines that are absolutely competitive with Apple's on a hardware basis. Now, one thing I do have to call out, as noted by John Gruber over on the Apple fanboy side, is that it looks like every one of these PCs is equipped with a fan, which makes them actually more competitive, not with the MacBook Air, which is what everybody's talking about and competing with here, but the MacBook Pro, which offers much, much better sustained performance. So I think, well, just judging by what we can guess about the industry, I doubt that the Snapdragon X Elite and X Plus are that much ahead of Apple's M3 and M4 on a performance basis once you include a fan. I think that it's the fact that the MacBook Air doesn't have one that's allowing these systems to beat Apple at their own game. But even given that, the fact that we've got all the major PC OEMs trotting out machines that dramatically outperform everything they've ever made and are absolutely neck and neck or maybe even ahead of competing offerings from Apple at a similar price point is really quite remarkable. And frankly, I am waiting with bated breath to see what Intel and AMD do to compete in this space, because so far, it looks like Qualcomm is way, way ahead. Now, one of the key features of these new CoPilot PCs, these AI PCs that have just been announced, is Recall, which continuously records a user's screen to enable sort of a time machine type capability, except not just for files, for literally everything you do online. But it didn't take long for those of us who are a little bit security minded to say, wait a second, there's some pretty major risks with having your PC watch and record and replay literally everything you do all day long. And this feature is turned on by default, reportedly. Do you really want your PC, not to mention the AI assistant that's been deployed in it, to watch and record everything you do?
I don't, but I have other reasons why. And they're not the reasons why you think. Get your mind out of the gutter. It's that all of this stuff just leads to bigger problems. Let me give you an example. There is an encrypted data store on my system that has history information for all the stuff that I do on a daily basis, like typing passwords into web forms, right? It doesn't know what the password is because, it's the little stars. It's like 102. We all know that. But Microsoft has recently started running ads in the start menu in Windows 11 for apps in the App Store. And if Recall notices that I spend a lot of time typing into password fields, wouldn't it be great to recommend a password sharing app like 1Password or LastPass or something like that to avoid doing that? Anyone else creeped out by the idea that my system is spying on me to sell me ads? And that's just one thing that I can see this being exploited into doing. Because here's the deal. If there is intelligence on your PC that is used for AI goodness, the people who pay Microsoft to raise their stock price will not accept a resource sitting around going unused. They're going to force companies like Microsoft to get their head in the game. And shouldn't you be using that data to make more money for your operating system? Because right now they don't even charge for Windows 11. They kind of do, but they really don't when you think about it. There's got to be a way to generate revenue off of that somehow, right? Well, initially the wave is going to be buying new AI PCs with these NPUs in them, because that's what's going to have to happen in order to be able to enable all of this stuff. But no, this is the slippery slope. Unless Microsoft is willing to step forward and say things like, I don't know, we will not comply to government subpoenas for your information when the NSA wants to know what you've been doing for the last 3 months. We will actively take federal agencies to court to find out how they're trying to break the encryption, and we will not provide encryption backdoor keys to the government. Man, wouldn't it be great if a manufacturer did something like that? Like one that's based in Cupertino, California. I would trust other manufacturers with my data in this case before I would trust a company that is running ads on the start menu and has a long history of having their stuff violated. And if you don't believe me, ask the Microsoft executives who had all of their emails stolen and collected by a state actor how they feel about having data collected and used against them. I bet you they're not overly happy with it either. Dell Tech World is this week, and we wanted to take a closer look at some of the stories that are coming out of it, because of course it is a massive undertaking for people in the enterprise computing space, and there's a lot of news, and we're covering a lot of it not only here on the Rundown, but also through 6.5 Live and a lot of the other Futurum Group properties. We have a lot of people on site that are talking about it. The first thing, Stephen, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that NVIDIA, which is quickly becoming one of the most valuable companies in the entire world, in the history of the world, is there. And they're talking about using Dell AI Factory and NVIDIA together for AI adoption. So how do you see this becoming something that Dell can take the NVIDIA ball and run with?
Well, it's interesting because if you look at what most of the expenditures so far on NVIDIA hardware related to AI have been, most of them have bypassed not just the traditional OEMs like your Dell or HP, but even some of the more aggressive and manufacturers like Supermicro. That being said, these traditional server and data center OEMs are expecting and indeed already reaping many increased sale of devices from NVIDIA in order to build out AI. So let's start with this AI factory concept. Jensen Huang was on stage at Dell Tech World. Of course, it seems like Jensen's everywhere. I hope he gets that jacket cleaned sometimes. And he was talking about this idea that an AI factory, well, this is not like an IoT factory or a factory that uses AI. No, the AI factory concept is that it is a metaphorical factory that manufactures intelligence, not products. And that factory is built on, of course, NVIDIA and other hardware. And that's really what Dell is talking about here. Essentially, the Dell AI factory would leverage NVIDIA's incredible GPUs with their Tensor cores, their Spectrum-X Ethernet networking fabric, their Bluefield DPUs, and would enable enterprises to build their own AI factory that manufactures intelligence. Many of us are a little skeptical about the quality of the intelligence that's going to come out of these factories, at least initially. But I think that the power that generative AI has makes it inevitable that eventually we're going to have a whole new wave of industry producing intelligence using AI. And I think that that's the bet that Dell is taking here. So essentially, Dell is putting together a integrated offering that's not just a server with a GPU in it or something, but no, it's a complete integrated stack that includes Dell's PowerEdge servers as well as NVIDIA's Blackwell GPUs and DPUs and all of this in order to manufacture, well, something. But again, this is kind of like a company that makes, I don't know, CNC machines or industrial presses or something. Just having a CNC machine doesn't mean that you're going to produce something useful. The ball's in the court of the customers now who have to go out there and actually use this AI factory to make something productive. Now, we're also hearing quite a lot coming out of Dell Tech World about how Dell is using AI and how Dell's partners are using AI to improve service and customer service and support and all that sort of stuff. We had folks on stage from Microsoft, from ServiceNow, from Dell themselves talking about these things. Tom, what do you think of using AI?
Well, I think it's valuable because when you look at what the most of your operational expense is in an organization, it's dealing with all of this service request stuff. I mean, I can tell you from personal experience that people have been known to buy PCs from companies that have good support organizations, whether they're PCs or servers or any of that other stuff. And so using AI to accelerate that, to create these kind of closed loop automation systems to make it more effective is hugely valuable. And I'm all for it if it makes it easier, but doesn't degrade the current support offering. I mean, let's be honest. Dell has always done a really good job of this. And that's one of the reasons why people continue to choose them over and over again instead of going with some other company or even just buying directly from an original device manufacturer. That's also one of the reasons why their channel has been so valuable over the years, is that you have a complete support stack from top to bottom. And that is something that your partner companies, your customers want to continue to buy from. So if you can augment that, if you can help them, deliver new functionality while still ensuring that nothing breaks, then that's going to be a good way to go in the future. It's going to mean that people are going to want to come back to you. And, all of the other integrations that they're doing just continue to add on to that. And I know that they're really focusing this on the edge of the compute infrastructure because, let's be fair, not everybody owns a data center with a small nuclear power plant that you can use to run some of those new NVIDIA Blackwell systems. Like we seriously, the power draw on a full unit, I think is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 25 city blocks or something. Like I just picture the Matrix when like they cut the hard line and like all the power goes out. That's what happens when you power one of those things on. So you've got to be able to distribute the load. And that's what a lot of this focus has been for Dell is how do we take these advancements and put them out into the edge of the network. And I know a lot of people are thinking edge nodes like, oh, my PC or my phone. No, we're talking about, the server clusters at the edge where, yes, they still have a lot of power, but they don't have enough power to run these massive, learning algorithms and things like that. So I applaud Dell for remembering that their customers are not the 5 largest data centers in the world. Their customers are distributed organizations that still have significant on-premises resources that they need to bring into the future. And that is how you generate sales for your server lines. It is not, oh, well, we just got to hope that, I don't know, Boeing buys $47 billion worth of servers in the next 5 years because they're the only company that can afford to buy the stuff that we're building. No, you still make money off the mom and pop organizations. And this is coming from the company where the guy proudly tells you that he got to start building PCs in a dorm room. If they ever forget that, that's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah, Tom, I see an analogy here between AI PCs using this, Qualcomm Snapdragon X that we talked about earlier in the show, and what Dell is doing at the edge. It's horses for courses. If you're trying to develop a thin and light laptop that sips power, then this, ARM CPU with GPU and NPU makes a lot of sense. If you're trying to deploy applications, like you said, that aren't going to, take a city block worth of power, those need special solutions as well. And I'm particularly excited about what Dell is doing with what they're calling NativeEdge, which is a proof of concept that shows that you can deploy servers with NVIDIA GPUs and Tensor cores at the edge in a reasonable power and cooling and space footprint to deploy these applications, these inferencing applications out there. Now, again, this is not AI training. This is not the massive, data centers. Forget city blocks. How about whole states worth of power used to train AI models? No, this is deploying things in production at the edge. And that is a very interesting thing that we're seeing announced. And so we've got companies like ServiceNow up there talking about how they're working with Dell, how they're working to not just deploy hardware, but to integrate this whole edge stack. And I'm really excited to learn more about that. I've got to get back to Pierre Luca over there at Dell and have him give us a walkthrough of exactly how AI applications can be deployed at the edge, what kind of hardware that's going to take, more importantly, what kind of software that's going to take, what kind of integration that's going to have overall. And it's exciting to see Dell talking about this because, like I said, kind of back to my point, you need special hardware to run AI applications on your laptop. You need special hardware to run it on edge devices. You need special hardware to run it in the data center and build this, AI factory. And Dell is hitting on all of those points at Dell Tech World.
Stephen, are you excited? Because we get to talk about storage for a second, because one of the things that was announced is Dell's adding some features onto their PowerStore storage systems using their Apex AI initiative. Just here's some highlights. They're promising better performance, 33% increased software performance, 66% increased hardware performance, 5-to-1 data reduction, and using QLC storage offerings. And of course, they're working on some data mobility between on-prem solutions and this thing called the cloud. I guess that people are still using the cloud. I mean, this is all a lot of numbers, of course, and they're saying that AI is driving a lot of this, but your old school storage. I mean, do you think that these kinds of algorithms can drive this kind of enhancement to storage?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, first off, I think that it's easy sometimes to go blah, blah, blah about the numbers. I mean, 30% better, 20% faster, 40% better space, whatever it is. I think it's easy to be like, okay, yeah, whatever, big numbers. But hey, big numbers are saving companies big amounts of money. And, deploying things like QLC, deploying next generation processors and the controllers, that yields actual real cost savings for customers, or it yields better performance. I mean, it opens up the door to new applications. So I don't think we should blah, blah the fact that Dell's PowerStore line is getting a lot better. But for me, again, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, what are you doing that's different? What are you doing that's interesting? And what are you doing that's exciting? And that's where Apex comes in. So Apex is their SaaS that optimizes the infrastructure using AI ops. And it is pretty cool what Dell is doing. This is one of the things that Dell's competitor, HPE, has been investing in quite a lot, as have companies like NetApp and Pure Storage, not to mention Vast Data, who's coming up quick. But Dell is investing there as well, and they're doing some really nice things. They've got AI-powered observability. They've got application integration. They've got incident management. They're looking at integrating better with Kubernetes, integrating better with the cloud, native Dell storage that stretches all the way from the data center to the cloud. And I think that these are valuable in a way that maybe even the AI factory isn't valuable, since today a Dell customer could buy and deploy this stuff and see dramatic improvements in cost or capabilities of storage, and of course of the applications that are running on that storage today, instead of betting on the next great product that's going to come from the company. So yeah, Dell Tech World is all about AI. You might as well call it Dell AI World at this time, but it's not all about AI. There's a lot of other exciting products that are being shown there. There's a lot of other advancements that are happening there. And frankly, I think that those things, it's easy to overlook them, but I think they're just as important.
Well, one of those new announcements, we've already touched on it a little bit, but specifically Pat Moorhead and Daniel Newman sat down with Sam Burd to discuss AI PCs while they were out there. And of course, they have all these new AI integrations. The news from Dell is that they're expecting this to create a super cycle of PC upgrades. Now, of course, if you want to learn more about that, if you're watching this as just a clip video, we did cover a little bit more about the new CoPilot Plus stuff earlier in the episode. But what makes the market for AI PCs?
Yeah, Tom, I found this discussion particularly interesting, not just for the AI PC space, but for the wider space. Again, back to the point I just made, you got AI PCs, you've got native AI at the edge, you've got AI in the data center, you've got, of course, massive improvements in hyperscale and HPC. The question is, we've already seen a super cycle, as the marketers would say, in hyperscale related to AI. There's no denying that there has been a massive spending on AI, especially around ML training in the hyperscalers, and that has driven NVIDIA forward like nothing else. The question of the hour, the month, the year, the decade is, will these other innovations also kick off a super cycle of investment? And I found this a particularly compelling discussion. Again, essentially, Pat Moorhead and Daniel Newman were talking to Sam Burd about this, and they go into some detail about this, but also, you can tell that these guys are really keen on asking that question and trying to figure out, will AI PCs, will NativeEdge unlock increased IT spending? And because that would really, revitalize and revolutionize the entire IT industry, the industry that everyone in this audience is probably living in. And I think that there's a chance that it will. So my concern around AI PCs was the software. You can roll out all the NPU performance and tensor cores you want, but if you're not doing anything compelling with it, then it's not going to drive adoption and spending. Look at Apple, right? They've had tensor cores, native NPU tensor cores, since the A11. That's over 5 years now. Have those have those hardware advancements driven customer adoption of product? I don't think they have. I think that Siri was compelling way back when, but that didn't need a tensor core. I don't think that Memoji and better classification of cat pictures was a force that made somebody say, I need a new iPhone. I'm going to go get me one of them, I don't know, A16 iPhone Pros or something like that. Now, I think Apple's going to remedy this at WWDC here next month. with some new software features. But that just proves the fact that just having the hardware doesn't necessarily mean that customers are going to buy. My concern around AI PCs was that it was really going to be a hardware play. That's, Qualcomm would come out with a massive, a CPU that has incredible TPU, tensor performance, and they would expect, okay, folks, come buy it, and people would greet it with a big yawn because what am I going to do with all that anyway? Well, Microsoft answered a lot of that last week, and Dell is answering that a lot of that this week in terms of what the software can do to make these things valuable. Now, we do have some concerns about one of these, some of what we're seeing here. As we talked about earlier in the show, is it really great to have your PC be able to recall and search literally everything you see and do online? Is that a feature that you want? Well, it's an innovation, at least. But some of these other things, I think, might be more attractive to people. I think ultimately the message that people are going to respond to is the privacy message. And this, again, I think Apple will be banging this drum heavily. If you can do AI assistant things in a secure enclave privately on your device where the information never leaves, then that is a compelling feature. And I think, I expect Apple to talk about that at WWDC. Certainly Microsoft was talking about that. And certainly the Dell folks are talking about that as well. If you can bring some of these features that are productive, that are useful, that maintain privacy, that are natively integrated, that just sort of work, I think that could drive a super cycle upgrade. So focusing in on this particular discussion, are AI PCs going to be a hit or a flop? I think they will be a hit. I think this is going to drive massive adoption. I think it's going to drive massive embrace of Qualcomm's ARM CPUs in the PC market, which is something we've been waiting for literally a decade. When will the ARM PC finally come from somebody not named Apple? I think that these features that we saw in the next version of Windows absolutely could unlock a super cycle of upgrades for end users, for corporations, for the edge. And that, I think, will revitalize this whole industry. And it was all down to whether Microsoft could deliver the software or not. I think they will. But that being said, there is always the chance that we all just kind of drop the ball and fumble again. And I think a lot of people could look at that and say, you know what? I just don't need to upgrade. I just don't see the value. What do you think, Tom? Do you see the value?
I see the value, and I think you're spot on that Microsoft has come a long way. Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer would have never done this. This is Satya Nadella is doing. I think where you are missing a piece is it's not just Microsoft that needs to meet customers where they're at. This absolutely has to be driven by companies that are writing this software. And they face a really hard challenge, right? Because I can't assume that your PC has an NPU in it. I can do that on the Apple side today. Like I can say that if I write to a spec of a PC that was released in, I don't know, like 2021, I can guarantee you it has an M series core in it. And I can write my spec to that. I can just say it must run this version of Mac OS and it must meet these specifications because I'm going to leverage like the video processing cores. Like I will never go out and buy a brand new PC because it has a ProRes video rendering core. But boy, when I hit the point where I need one, I'm kind of glad that I have it. And that's the problem that the PC manufacturers are going to face with the AI PC. They really need to put these NPUs in there if they're going to be competitive in a market where everything else is an NPU. But they're going to have to eat the cost of those NPUs for at least the first year or two because they have to get them pervasive in the market before you can start writing software that will take advantage of them. Otherwise, we run this being the problem of Microsoft's Kinect for the Xbox 360, right? That was going to be the killer app. And they had a couple of killer apps, like a karaoke app and a Star Wars game. And then they went on clearance because nobody really wanted them. Because it turns out that just like the VR craze in gaming or the spatial craze in gaming, if you can't sustain the momentum, you are going to have to eat that hardware cost. That's one of the reasons why doing all this in software is so easy for people to talk pie in the sky, is because the additive costs of developing this in software is negligible. You're already paying those developers. Why not have them write new code? When it's hardware focused, you have to eat the cost of that hardware. And I think that on the whole, PC manufacturers are going to embrace this because they need competitive advantages. And like you said, this conversation in 3 months from now is going to be a radically different one because we're going to see all of the software being updated across all the platforms to include the capabilities that are now inherent in all these devices. Will it kick off a super cycle of buying? It will if there's a killer app. And again, it comes back to the chicken and the egg problem. I, as an IT purchasing department, do not want to go out and refresh all of my users' devices unless there is something that I have to have them on that only works on this device. And there's no greater example of this on the other side of the fence than the brand new iPad that was just released, right? It's faster, it's better, it has all these features. And a lot of people who have a somewhat new device took one look at it and said, well, it's not good enough for me to need it. But if, let's just say, I'm spitballing here, let's say Apple announces at WWDC that you can run a version of Mac OS on an iPad, but it must be the M4 iPad. Bang, there you go. They've taken a chance that people are going to reject their assertion, or they could just have sold 1 million new iPads because everyone who's been clamoring for this software is going to go out and buy that. That's how the PC manufacturers will drive AI PC adoption. It's not AI enabled editing of my photos. It's not asking DALL-E to create a cat with a party hat on. It's streamlining the process. It's getting my system to the point where it can do the things that I need to do in my workflow, and reducing time or creating capabilities. Once it gets to that point, I think people will agree that maybe it's time to upgrade to a PC that has these functions or something like that, but not in this first wave. This is a longer timeline than just, man, we need to spike those buying decisions by the third quarter of 2024. You're not going to get that.
If I can have a last word on this subject, Tom, I want to go back to the AI factory concept. Remember, if the AI factory is a metaphorical factory that produces intelligence using AI software and hardware, it's important to remember that that AI factory does not live only in the cloud or only in the data center. That AI factory lives in each individual employee's desktop, laptop, phone, personal assistant device, etc. If they can push useful intelligence generation everywhere, from your hand to the edge, to the data center, to the cloud, then it's going to be a major supercycle. If the AI factory is something that's going to be locked away in a data center in a hyperscaler somewhere, then it's not.
Well, it's a busy week for us, with all the stuff that we've got going on with the news coming out of Dell Tech World. But the next few weeks coming up are just as busy because, well, next week, Stephen, you've got something cool going on.
That's right. We've got App Dev Field Day, the first ever App Dev focused event. This is kicking off with a slim event. We've got a bunch of great companies. I want to announce that we've got Google Cloud presenting at App Dev Field Day. Very excited to see them there, along with Mesmo and Catchpoint. We've got a lot of great presentations as well from others in the community. Then I'm going to be off to Orlando for Click Connect, and you are off to Vegas, right?
That's right. I'm going to be at Cisco Live US the first week of June, 3rd through the 6th. We're going to have great presentations from Cisco, of course. They've got some exciting new announcements. They've got some cool technologies. And then, of course, our friends at Open Gear. They are longtime friends of us at the event. We've gotten to see a lot of their product development cycles. We'll be posting the schedule and the topics for those presentations very soon, so make sure you stay tuned to techfieldday.com. And then as I get back from Vegas, you're back on the road again.
That's right. Cloud Field Day is shaping up really nicely. The second week in June, we've announced previously that Juniper would be there. We've also got Morpheus Data, and I'm announcing right now that Oxide Computer is coming, which is one of the most requested Tech Field Day presenters. And I'm going to not spoil it. We've got a major hyperscaler joining us as well at that event. I can't wait to release the details there. And that same week, of course, is the annual 6.5 Summit. I urge everyone here to register for that. Tune in live. There's going to be incredible presentations by basically every company in the IT industry. And of course, we'll be talking about that during Cloud Field Day.
And then after that, I'm going to be back at HPE Discover. We've had a special networking field day exclusive event with our friends at HPE Aruba Networking. We're going to have some great conversations around hot topics like Wi-Fi 7 and SASE, SSE, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be having a lot of great conversations there and enjoying not being in the humidity because, of course, it is Vegas in June. But the other thing that is dry is the humor around here at the Rundown, which you can catch every Wednesday. In the afternoons, we'll get the videos published, or you can listen to us on a podcast feed if you prefer to get the news while you're mowing the yard or going for a run or waiting in line at the doctor's. Whatever the case may be, make sure you're subscribed to all of our platforms so you don't miss it when we publish a new episode. We will be back next Wednesday with great news. I will be here as Stephen will be out. So me and the co-host will have some exciting technology to bring you. And then we'll be continuing to check on news stories as they come in. So if you see something that you want us to cover on the Rundown, make sure you let us know on social media. We're always happy to do that. Take care of yourselves. Go buy a tuba because everyone needs a tuba in their house, especially if it's an AI-enabled tuba. Until next time, we will see you with another great episode of The Rundown next week.